Okay, we'll be starting with number 35, and that happened on Thursday, December 19th at 4:52 p.m. and that occurred at a residence in the 2600 block of Collins Creek. And at 4:52 p.m., Austin 911 received a call of an individual being shot at a residence at this address. And when officers arrived inside the residence, they located a 16-year-old male with a gunshot wound. He was then transported over to St. David's South Austin Hospital off of Ben White and was there for a time. While that was happening, detectives from multiple units responded to the address. And it appears, based on preliminary investigation, that a group of juveniles was inside the residence. They were playing video games when one of the individuals took out a handgun and started jokingly around playing with it and pointed at the other juveniles. They asked him to stop doing that, and that's about the time that the handgun discharge, striking the 16-year-old. He was identified, the 16-year-old was identified as Jesse Ramirez IV, and the juvenile is a 14-year-old. We cannot name him because he is a juvenile. Then on the 20th, we received a call that Mr. Ramirez had passed. His time of death was 1:47 p.m. on December 20th. Prior to this, we had arrested the juvenile for the aggravated assault. But now that the ME has performed the autopsy and ruled this death a homicide, the district attorney will likely be looking at upgrading the charge.
Will the suspect be tried as an adult or as a juvenile in this case? Or?
That will likely be, well, that is a decision of the district attorney's office. And given that he's 14, unless he has an extensive history, don't know that they would. It's still pretty young.
And what factor does it play into the fact that you mentioned that they were kind of joking around with a gun? It didn't seem premeditated, it sounds like. Does that have any factor in whether or not he gets tried as an adult? Or
Absolutely. If this was just immaturity at play here, with a handgun, and there was no intention on his part to pull the trigger and shoot one of his friends, then they're looking at reckless behavior or criminally negligent behavior.
More people were inside of the plane or something? There were more people?
Yes, there was other juveniles inside the house and in the room where this occurred.
Do we know where the juvenile got the gun? And are there going to be any arrests or charges against somebody else because they provided the gun to him?
So that will be a part of this, in trying to discover where he got a hold of this handgun. There's still a lot of work to be done. Also, juveniles are processed quite a bit differently than adults, and so even being able to obtain that information directly from him, that's something we'll have to discuss with his attorney to see if they're willing to give that kind of information to us.
How did he get his hand on the gun? Was it stored improperly, or was it just out in the
Well, that's part of it. He produced it while they were all playing this video game, so assumingly he brought it with him or he found it inside the residence, and all that is part of our investigation.
Is there a message here for, I guess, safe storage of guns in cases like this?
Yeah, 14-year-olds shouldn't be able to get a hold of a handgun.
Was there any kind of parents or anyone of age inside the house? Or
There does not appear to have been an adult in the residence when this occurred. Okay. Moving to number 36.
Thank you.
So on Saturday, December 21st at 8:55 p.m. at a residence in the 7500 block of Rio Pass, Austin 911 received a call of a disturbance in progress. 911 operators could hear yelling in the background. Once the 911 operator heard it sounded like someone was being pushed to the ground, they upgraded the call to an active violent disturbance. Officers arrived and observed an older woman outside. She told them that she had been assaulted and that the male that had assaulted her was walking down the block. Officers observed him and detained him at that time. The lady also told us that there was another woman inside the residence and she wasn't moving and wasn't breathing. Officers entered the residence and located Diamond D. Bridgman, an African-American female. They saw that she was not breathing and immediately began resuscitation efforts. EMS and fire also arrived and took over those efforts. They did get her transported to Del Seaton, where she was later pronounced deceased at 10:22 p.m. Detectives were able to speak with the suspect of the name of Juanya Touchstone, a white male born in 1998. The two appeared to have been married, and this involved a domestic violence incident. Mr. Touchstone was arrested for the murder of Ms. Bridgman. And the autopsy was ruled a homicide as a result of blunt force trauma. Any questions on this?
With the blunt force trauma, I mean, has it been determined, was it, by hand, or was it a weapon or an item in the house? What was used in this case?
It appears that it was all by hand, no physical weapon per se.
The witness who also was assaulted, what's her status? Is she okay? And also, what's her relationship to either the suspect or the victim?
So the elderly woman was assaulted is the mother of Mr. Touchstone. And Touchstone and Bridgman lived with her at her residence. And she's okay, and has a lot of family support.
Is she also pressing charges, or?
So additional charges of injury to the elderly were filed by the domestic violence unit. They came in to handle that portion, and they spoke with her.
This being a domestic incident, has there been a history of police call-outs to that specific address?
Yes, there is a history involving Ms. Bridgman and Mr. Touchstone. As far as the homicide investigation, we just focused on this evening and what happened and how this thing progressed.
One more question?
I guess does Mr. Touchstone have any prior charges as far as assault or family violence or anything like that?
Yes, he does.
How many?
I don't know how many. I know that there's been more than one incident involving Mr. Touchstone
With Ms. Bridgman?
and Ms. Bridgman, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.